federal prosecutor calling it the largest single state immigration raid in history. ICE agents surrounding food processing plants in Mississippi, arresting 680 people. Steve Harrigan's following the story for us from Atlanta this morning. Steve?
Sandra, this operation was planned for months. More than 600 agents were involved. They moved in on 6 different cities, smaller cities around Jackson, Mississippi. They were mainly targeting chicken processing plants. The agents would surround the perimeter of the plant, then move in. They would check for proof of residency from the workers. Those without it were lined up, their hands were zip-tied behind their backs, and their personal possessions were put in clear plastic bags. They were taken by bus to an airport hangar for processing. Some will be arrested for crimes, some will be deported immediately, and others will be processed further.
And a manhunt for 2 teenagers wanted for the deaths of 3 people, including an American woman and her boyfriend. After weeks of searching, Canadian authorities believe they found the bodies of the suspects. The bodies discovered about 2,000 miles from where the victims were found. Here's ABC's chief national correspondent, Matt Gutman.
That Canada-wide search for those teenage murder suspects ended today with the discovery of what are believed to be their remains. Cam McLeod and Briar Schmigelski's alleged murder spree began in British Columbia more than 3 weeks and 2,000 miles from where the bodies were found. They were accused of shooting American China Deese and her boyfriend, Lucas Fowler, point blank on July 15th, then driving to another part of British Columbia and murdering this college professor. Those deaths sparking a massive manhunt, surveillance cameras capturing the 2 at this big box store on July 21st, over 1,000 miles away.
In the aftermath of a weekend of mass shootings, the U.S. government is stepping up its security efforts. The public is being encouraged to report any suspicious activity. Furthermore, the Homeland Security Chair is saying he needs monthly briefings from the FBI on domestic terrorism issues. Trump says that he's giving maximum authority to security agencies.
Federal authorities are on the ground, and I have directed them to provide any and all assistance required, whatever is needed.
Trump also called for social media to step up and cooperate with law enforcement.
I am directing the Department of Justice to work in partnership with local, state, and federal agencies, as well as social media companies, to develop tools that can detect mass shooters before they strike.
More surveillance online is supposed to mean more security offline. Does any of that sound familiar? After 9/11, the Bush administration launched a broad, sweeping surveillance program. The NSA collected data on millions of Americans. We now know about it thanks to Edward Snowden's leaks in 2013. Now, there was certainly outrage, but some said it was necessary to keep us safe. But did it really keep us safe? Not really.
The 19-year-old Dvir Sorek was living in the settlement of Ofra. He was studying in a yeshiva, a Jewish learning school in another part of the West Bank, and his body was found there at something like 2:30 a.m. Israeli police are now searching, and it's police, soldiers and security services, because they suspect that it may be more than one person, that to take a body and dump it would mean that you'd need at least 2, a driver and someone to carry out the attack. And so at the moment, they have set up checkpoints at a number of villages that look out on that region, and they are going through those villages trying to see if they can find any evidence of a cell. It's worth remembering that what their working hypothesis also is that this is a kidnapping that went wrong.
China has lashed out at Australia, claiming our relationship had been damaged by stinging comments made by a Liberal MP. Andrew Hastie says the rise of the new superpower poses a direct threat to our freedom.
We're going to have a look at this. The Prime Minister was tackling nasty weeds in the north.
All the threats of prickly acacia sit right in Queensland.
As one of his backbenchers unloaded on a much bigger regional threat. The head of Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee, Andrew Hastie, took aim at Australia's view on China, comparing it to the French defences built to contain Hitler's Germany, and warning that the next decade will test our democratic values, our economy, our alliances and our security like no other time in Australian history. The Chinese embassy hit back, saying the MP's words lays bare his Cold War mentality and ideological bias. It goes against the world trend of peace, cooperation and development. It is detrimental to China-Australian relations.
Families just 2.5 hours outside Brisbane City are tonight facing a water crisis.
The drought is merciless and at least 2 towns don't have enough water to make it to Christmas.
Everywhere you look on the Southern Downs, it's bone dry, and the dams that supply Stanthorpe and Warwick aren't much better.
Well, this is certainly the worst drought in recorded history.
So bad, Stanthorpe's main water supply, Storm King Dam, is predicted to run out by December.
I don't like the word disaster. I don't really like the word emergency, but that's where we are now.
Residents in 5 regions across Queensland are already on water restrictions. The Southern Downs region is currently extreme. By September 1, they'll be upgraded to critical, limiting water use to just 100 litres per person per day.
The circumstances are that the officers who were in a marked police vehicle stopped a van for no insurance, and having engaged the driver, who was quite aggressive, because we're very fortunate we've got body-worn camera of the whole incident. Having tried to deal with that offence, he then tries to make off, gets back in the van, and a violent struggle ensues where he produces a weapon and stabs our officer in the head and then around the body. And also, during the struggle, the officer has managed to get his taser and deploy it, which stops the incident. The officer is currently at the Royal London. I went to visit him in the early hours this morning. He is fine. He's seriously injured, but he will make a recovery.
Gideon Gaura has lived in Lema district all his life. Aged 74, he says over the years the rains have become more and more erratic. Drought induced by the El Nino weather pattern has cut Zimbabwe's maize harvest by half and reduced water levels in dams and rivers.
We don't eat in the morning and in the afternoon. We eat only at night. We eat as little as possible so that the food can last longer.
President Emmerson Mnangagwa has declared this latest drought a national disaster, and the United Nations wants more help to prevent a humanitarian crisis. It's raised its appeal to international donors to $331 million.
Anna Lessenger and her family are heading to an area in northern Kenya where they've been told there's enough water and pasture for her livestock. It will take them a day to walk there. There's a drought in parts of Kenya. Months of rain have just ended, but weather experts say it wasn't enough and millions of people are likely to suffer worsening food and water shortages.
It did not rain where we were, so we had to come this way to a settlement area where my animals can survive.
Herders from different parts of this region are bringing their animals to areas such as Maralal, where it has rained. But frequent droughts and scarcity of resources often causes conflict between herding communities.
Many of the conflicts begin from watering points, cattle markets, and grazing areas like this one, and it takes so little to start a fight which can spiral out of control and trigger revenge by communities.